Arsenal have sent Newcastle's Champions League dreams spiralling, with the gap now closing to just 1 point, and with Man United losing to West Ham the same night, suddenly the race for top 4 looks more open than ever. But first, before we go into all of that, we're going to take an in-depth look into this game at St James's and how Newcastle somehow pressed themselves off of the pitch. We've got goal reactions, tactical analysis, and where this all leaves us in the race for top 4. Arsenal lost out on Champions League in this exact fixture last year, and the same fate might be happening to Newcastle. Trippier plays the corner short, back to Joelinton. Guimaraes hits the crowd, calling for a handball, and it's a penalty for Newcastle. The ball comes out to Guimaraes on the edge of the box. He slams a ball into the crowd, and it hits the hand of Kivior. I think that's going to be overturned. That's hit his knee. Even if it does hit his arm, it's glued to his hip. There's no way this is going to be a penalty, surely. Decision from the referee, no penalty. Good decision. Newcastle started this game with a fire up their collective arse, and an incredibly high back line, and a press that Arsenal simply were not ready for. And the Magpies could have opened the scoring on several occasions in the first 10 minutes, with the closest coming from Murphy hitting the post. But against the run of play, it was quality that overturned intensity, and Odegaards struck a beautiful strike from outside the box and gave the Gunners the lead. Jorginho out to Odegaard, who looks for the strike, and he struck it, and that is a brilliant goal. Against the run of play, the Norwegian from so far out finds the bottom right-hand corner past Nick Pope on their first shot on goal. That's the quality, that's the magic that Arsenal needed to get out of the pit of pressure that is St James's, and they go 1-0 up in the first 15 minutes. If there was a team that deserved to score, it was Newcastle, but they find themselves 1-0 down. Despite that trademark press that Eddie Howe has instilled into the boys in black and white, they actually switched off from a free kick, and Joelinton, who I think struggled at times in that double six with Bruno, was not aggressive enough in closing down Odegaard on the edge of the box, and a decoy run from Jesus opened up that space for the ball to nestle into the bottom corner. Making decisions early on in games when things aren't going your way is a huge component for any team that wants to be successful. To make changes in the cauldron of noise to deal with the chaos shows huge amounts of experience. Experience that apparently Arsenal don't have. However, by Jorginho and Xhaka dropping slightly deeper in the build-up to, well, receive the ball from their centre-backs, but to also encourage the press from Newcastle, showed huge amounts of in-game intelligence. Encouraging the press onto a player like Jorginho, who is so great with his back to play and retaining possession in tight areas, allowed for that space to be created for Odegaard, where he could start pulling the strings. He began to exploit that high line from Newcastle and started to create chances that should have been capitalised on if it wasn't for some brilliant stops from Nick Pope. Newcastle get back in shape. Beautiful from Odegaard. Threads a ball through to Martinelli. He's in on goal. Beautiful stop from Pope. Odegaard. The pressure's not over. Curls a ball, and another good stop from Pope, a busy man in the last couple of minutes. Newcastle haven't kept a clean sheet since the start of April versus Man United, and their defence certainly looks a lot more vulnerable. They won't mind, of course, because they've been winning games high scoring at the other end, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on, and I'm going to say it, I think they're missing Sean Longstaff. In the build-up, Newcastle played with a double six, which allowed for the ball to be received easily off of the centre-backs and give Bruno the best chance to find his teammates further forward. But out of possession, Joelinton played more as an aggressive 8, which actually left Bruno oftentimes as the last midfielder. And this led to him actually being exploited a couple of times in that position, as I don't think he quite has the capability to shield a defence. Newcastle's press with those aggressive 8s really worked in their favour in the first 10 or 15 minutes, but after a slight adjustment from Jorginho, all of a sudden that space in behind actually became a weakness. I think Joelinton is really effective pressing in that final third, but for the middle and first third, for me, it's Bruno and Longstaff who are a much better and more balanced double pivot. Bruno's incredible distribution is that touch of world class that this Newcastle team definitely needs, but he actually wasn't the threat for Arsenal. That actually came in wide areas, as oftentimes Zinchenko was caught out of position as he drifted inside and left a lot of room for Trippier to venture forward and start creating those attacking triangles in wide areas, and actually caught Arsenal off guard a couple of times as their defence shifted across. Trippier, lovely ball into Murphy, up against Zinchenko. Can he get the better of the Ukrainian? Goes on the outside, Zinchenko slips, Murphy into the box, and it's Isaac, and it's off the post. He bombed into the box and got his head on the ball, and it clatters off the post. That's a foul on Murphy from Zinchenko. Newcastle with a free kick on the edge of the box. Trippier with the ball in. It's a good one. And it's in. And that's a brilliant save from Ramsdale. My word, how have Newcastle not scored? They are two incredible chances. It was Cher with the header, unchallenged in the box. Straight at the keeper, but Ramsdale had a lot to do. All video, we've spoken about the incredible intensity in Newcastle's press and their aggressiveness in the challenge, but actually it was a lack of closing down in Martinelli that led to that second killer goal. Actually, before the second goal, Newcastle were warned of Martinelli's ability in 1v1 situations, as he was allowed to venture into the box with little to no challenge. He picked up a great bit of space and had 3 players around him, but for him, it was a 1v1 because Willock and Trippier were not engaging in the challenge. Shah just kept backing off, and he released a beautiful shot that just skimmed the bar. And this situation was almost replicated again in that second half, but this time they were punished. Martinelli ended up isolating Botman on that left-hand side, which is an uncomfortable defensive position for Botman to be in, but Martinelli just kept moving forward. He squared him up, but was just allowed to venture into the box. And once you're there, that's danger, because any wrong move can end in a penalty. But for me, it was way too easy to actually get into the box. A challenge should have been made far earlier. He should have made his life a lot more difficult and defend the box with aggression, get tight to your man and make that challenge. Because once he's in the box, anything can happen. And anything did happen as Shah stabbed home the ball in his own net. Jesus gives it to his Brazilian teammate in Martinelli, bursting down the left. Saka's late arriving in the box. Odegaard's asking for it on the edge. Martinelli goes alone, goes to the byline, puts a ball in, and wow, an acute angle. He just slammed the ball in, and it's come off Shah. But Martinelli silences St. James's. He went alone, he went to the touchline, and put a ball into the box, and the ricochet ends in the back of the net. Newcastle were unlucky not to score in this game, and their energy and performance certainly deserved one, but it's those fine margins that did it for them. An incredible press and intensity, but switching off in those wrong moments, and a lack of aggression in their own third certainly needs to be worked on. There are now only 4 games left to secure top 4, and they're tricky games for Newcastle. But the dream isn't over, because I think most teams in the league would have crumbled after those first 10 minutes at St. James's. They just so happen to be playing an incredibly intelligent Arsenal team that adapted very well. And as for Arsenal, Jorginho is showing how crucial he will be in the remaining games of the season. A season that is going to the wire.